Good morning, beautiful people of Hankland. It is Hank here. Today's Newbie Tuesday, and today we're going to be talking about the Shaman class. We're going to be doing a discussion of sorts. Yeah, the Shaman class in Hearthstone right now, after the launch of Whispers of the Old Gods, is quite insane. Quite absolutely insane. And the main culprit for that reason, there's a lot of good cards that just came out in this expansion. There's cards like Evolve, very good card, very RNG. There's cards like Eternal Sentinel, desperately needed. There's cards like Master of Evolution, quite a good card. There's Halaziel. There's Think From Below. There's amazing cards that just came out in this expansion. I don't even have all the cards. There's Hammer of Twilight. It's an amazing weapon. Stormcrack's pretty good. A replacement to Crackle. But the biggest culprit of them all is Flame Wreathed Faceless. And we're going to be talking about this card. Flame Wreathed Faceless. Not only is it hard to say, Flame Wreathed Faceless, but it's a 7/7 for 4 that overloads you for 2, and that's the only downside, is it gives you 2 overload. And honestly, that overload does not even matter in the grand scheme of things, because 7/7 on turn 4 is kind of insane. It's great for mid-range, it's great for aggro, it's great for late game. It's just, it's an amazing card. And the biggest reason for why it's so good is because it's really hard to counter that at turn 4. For instance, let's run through all the counters that every class has to this card, and you're gonna start to see why this card is so good. So in Druid, we have a bunch of removal options for this card. But not all of them are amazing. So we have Naturalize, which will just straight up kill the monster and make your opponent draw 2 cards. So by playing Flame Wreathed Faceless on turn 4, you get 2 cards if the Druid wants to hard counter you. Other than that, he's gonna have to be spending a lot of spells in order to deal with your card. Now there's cards like Mulch. Mulch is probably a really good counter to it, mainly because the random minion they're going to get off of it is not going to be as good as Flame Wreathed Faceless. Most likely, unless they get like a super awesome legendary. But even then, the mana cost is going to be crazy. So Mulch is probably the direct counter for Druid to Flame Wreathed Faceless. And even then, it gives them a card off of it. So by playing that card, they still get card advantage. Starfire doesn't counter it. And this is 6 mana. 6 mana. You're not going to be playing that on turn 5. And if he's going first turn 4 and you're going into turn 4, your only options are Mulch, Swipe, and Naturalize. And Swipe doesn't even clear it. In Hunter, we have not a lot of options. There's Hunter's Mark. That's probably the best option. And then sacking one of your own minions. I think Freezing Trap is going to be a good counter to it. So setting up a Freezing Trap on turn 3 when your opponent has no other minions is pretty good. But the likeliness of that happening is not guaranteed. So even in Hunter, it's pretty hard to do it. Deadly Shot, if it's the only minion, yeah. So Hunter has some ways to deal with it. Mage has an easier time because they have a turn 4 spell called Polymorph, which is probably the direct counter. It's the same mana cost, and it's a pretty good polymorph target. Like Fireball doesn't even kill this card. Fireball does 6 damage. Vaporize is another way to sort of tech it, and Polymorph Boar is a cheaper polymorph, but it will have charge and 2 health, which you then have to follow up. So Mage has an easy time, I would say, with polymorphs. So I would run 2 polymorphs in Mage right now because there's so many threats to polymorph. And if you're going to run into any shamans on ladder, you want to have that polymorph. And you should mulligan for that polymorph if you're playing against shaman. Paladin has some hilarious ways to deal with it in humility. So he plays it for 1 mana. You could just set it to 1 attack, which makes it pretty useless. It's a 2 overcharge minion, 1/7. Older Peacekeeper is a really good counter as well in Shaman. So Paladin and Mage honestly have easy times dealing with it. Priest also has an easy time, but now Priest is going to be running 2 Shadow Word Deaths, just for these Shamans on ladder. And it's kind of insane. Shadow Word Death is the only way that Priest can deal with it. Rogue has a freaking awful time dealing with this card. I should know because I like Rogue. I like main Rogue. And what do you do to counter this card? You could sap it. Ooh. Eviscerate and Backstab doesn't kill the card. The new card, Shadow Strike, doesn't kill it. Now if you Shadow Strike and SI7, you could kill it. Yeah. Great. The only problem is you're not going to be playing both these cards on turn 4. So what are the turn 4 options? The turn 4 options are Sap. I mean, there's Pit Snake. That'd be good for turn 3, playing a Pit Snake and hoping he doesn't kill it. It'd stall him for sure. Like, you kind of need to go first, your opponent play Flamely Faceless, and then your turn 5 is Assassinate and nothing else. And your opponent then goes into turn 5 with 3 mana crystals. It could just play a 3-drop. And you're behind in tempo. So Rogue has a hard time dealing with this card. Shaman, of course, doesn't have a hard time dealing with this card. They have frickin' Hex. You could go full ham. You could go, Lava Burst, Lightning Bolt for 4 mana. Moving on to Warlock. There's Corruption, which will kill it, but it gets to attack you first, so that's not so great. You could use a minion with Power Overwhelming that has 3 attack, and then that will clear it. That's not terrible if you're able to do it, but the likelihood of that happening is not always there. Siphon Soul kills it. Yeah, that's true. But there's 2 turns you gotta take damage to the face from that thing. So Warlock has a not so easy time dealing with it. Warrior has the standard Shield Slam and Execute. But the thing about that is you have to have an activator for Execute, and the thing about that is you have to have not taken a bunch of damage for Shield Slam to work. So yeah, the strongest classes for countering this Shaman is Mage and Paladin, and Shaman. Mage, Paladin, and Shaman. The next classes that have an okay time, and I mean, like, if you're going to be countering the aggro Shaman version, Warrior's really good. But the classes that struggle the most against it are Warlock, Rogue, and Druid. And if you're playing those classes, you really need to be thinking about what are your options against this card. And you have to go back to Big Game Hunter. But Big Game Hunter was changed to 5 now. So you need to be going first and playing Big Game Hunter on turn 5 just to counter this thing. And that other question you ask is, do you run 2 Big Game Hunters? Because you do have such a big issue dealing with these super efficient 7/7s. And yeah, that's essentially it. The card is just crazy strong right now. And I don't see it moving out of play anytime soon. So if you're going to be playing Druid Hunter or warlock and sometimes warrior, you need to be thinking about including big game hunter in your deck because you do need solutions. I mean, druid can get away with it because they have such huge taunts, but for hunter and warlock, this is such a crazy card to face against. I mean, hunter can burst you down, so that's okay. Zoo can flood the board, so that's okay. Or they're running Reno Jackson, but for rogue, I don't know. It just sucks. Anyways, that's my long rant about how OP this card is. Let's go play rogue. Should really be a 3-4 though. I mean, at least gets to be a 3-5. All right. I think we should just draw right now. Man, there needs to be more options. Ba-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Seriously. So dumb. Woo! Options. Of course. Yeah, we're dead. Woo, we did it. So dumb.